First of all, thanks, Wendy, for accepting our invitation. This is a one of a series of events that we have for our purchasing staff here in Broward County. I have some past familiarity with MCAP in 2 states, and I know 2020 was a very exciting year for MCAP, trying to serve the needs of the rest of the country. So I'm familiar with what you provide, and I'm very appreciative of it. So if you could share your knowledge and understanding of what you can do to the rest of our crowd here, I would very much appreciate it. And thanks again for joining us. So with that, I'll turn it over to you. We do have many of our purchasing staff here, but we also invited some of our client agencies who are the principal users of your services. So thanks again.
Well, you're very welcome, Bob. I'm happy to be here, joining you virtually. I understand, I had a quick chat with Betsy this morning. I understand she is online with us as well. And if she'd like to say hello, I'll just let her do that. But I understand you guys go way back. And for those of you who don't know, I'm managing director of MCAP Infuse. And I joined MCAP about 3 months before that great pandemic hit in early 2020. So I had the pleasure of attending my first NASPA with Betsy this past fall, now that we're back in the real world again. So a pleasure to be here with you all this afternoon, your time. I do have, I believe, Betsy Hayes is online with me from the state of Minnesota, and I've also got Jared Huzingay, who is our marketing, membership, and field services manager, and they are free to interrupt me at any time because I don't know everything. I'm still learning.
Thanks, Wendy. Hello, everyone. I'm Betsy Hayes. I'm the Chief Procurement Officer with the state of Minnesota, and it's so great to see you again, Bob. Hello. You know, I'm just delighted that we've been invited to talk about MCAP Infuse. They're part of our central procurement office in Minnesota, and I know they'll give a little bit of history, but we really hope that you'll see this as a unique opportunity to partner and work with another government entity, and hope that you can see the value and some exciting opportunities ahead. But thanks, first and foremost, just for inviting us here today.
All right, thanks, Betsy. Jared, you can feel free to jump in at any time. I won't make you turn the camera on, and I will probably turn mine off. I'm going to go ahead and share a slide deck with you. I think it was part of the invite, so you can certainly follow along that way as well. Let me see. Is it going to let me? It's going to let you see the next slides. All right, you can see you there. First things first, we're going to talk a little bit about government serving government, and that really is the foremost objective of MCAP Infuse. We are serving our fellow government entities. And who is MCAP Infuse? Well, the first thing I want to explain is that we are a national cooperative group purchasing organization for government entities, most of which provide healthcare services. Our portfolio offers contracts which are competitively awarded and follow a very stringent procurement process that promotes fair and open competition. That portfolio includes things like pharmaceuticals, vaccines, over-the-counter products, distribution services, medical supplies, vaccines, return goods processing, dental supplies, drug testing supplies, and invoice auditing. And we'll talk about a few of those in just a little bit. We accomplish this by soliciting and then executing contracts that leverage our aggregated member volume to drive some deeper discounts for our members. We do the work of that competitive government procurement and solicitations for you using stringent Minnesota state procurement regulations, also with an eye towards the requirements of our other state members, so that members don't have to do that work in multiple RFPs or solicitations by individual states or members. You all are part of a purchasing group at Broward County, so I understand you're probably fully aware you've got your own set of regulations when it comes to solicitations. And so that is what we are in the midst of. We are part of the state of Minnesota procurement office. And so very, very, very knowledgeable about what's required here in Minnesota, but as well as many of our member states and organization. Our mission here is to ensure that best value is found for pharmaceuticals and healthcare products and services for our government facilities across the nation. We do have our members participate based on their purchasing needs in various categories of trade. So we hear back from our members. We'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. But as we get going here, I know, Bob, you're familiar with us. I'm not sure about the other folks online here. But do any of you know what MMCAP, MCAP stands for? You could probably put it in the chat, but I'm not sure I can see that while I'm running the slides here. But I just want to let you know, next slide here. MCAP stands for the Minnesota Multi-State Contracting Alliance for Pharmacy. We were originally known as MMCAP or MCAP, and this organization was created in collaboration with Wisconsin back in 1985. And it was a joint purchasing venture between us and Wisconsin. And it worked so well that in 1990, Colorado joined the cooperative. And then we fast forward about 30 years, and what is now known as MCAP Infuse has served about 26,000 member facilities in all 50 states. On a regular basis, we see about 9,700 purchasing members in a rolling 12-month basis. When we look at the 26,000 member facilities, those are shipped to addresses. And so those are the number of facilities that have signed on. Not necessarily all 26,000 are purchasing in a given year. It's closer to that 9,700 number. We are created here in Minnesota under Minnesota Statute Section 471.59 and also Statute 16C.03. That's boring to some of you if there are any lawyers listening. That's an important citation for where we get our authority. And with each of the 50 states that we partner with, there's a joint powers agreement, which grants authority to the Department of Administration and the Commissioner of Administration here in Minnesota to procure contracts for goods and services for those other states. So MCAP Infuse functions like a GPO. A GPO is a group purchasing organization. There are a lot of those. It's a common type of entity in the private world, but we function as a GPO in the public world. And so we assist our members with realizing savings and efficiencies across the group of our members. We engage in competitive government solicitations. This is where we help our members keep it simple. And so by aggregating purchase volume, we're able to negotiate better discounts, better pricing, and best value for our members, and to save our members the work of doing all of those solicitations or RFPs individually. We are able to help with the heavy lifting of that, and particularly at a time where resources are stretched thin across purchasing departments in our various member organizations. This allows them to focus on that fair and open competition that we provide and find what they need at a great price, usually a great value. We include certification for the solicitation, an RFP. We have clearly defined award criteria and the most common required contractual provisions that we see across our membership. We also try to keep abreast of the industry trends and public policy needs that are shifting to better serve our members and to further leverage those industry needs for our members. We collaborate with a number of national organizations. I'll list just a couple of those here. As I mentioned before, when we were chatting with Bob, we attend the NASPO annual conference annually, along with our Chief Procurement Officer, Betsy, who is on the call with us. We send some of our managers to the legal and distribution conferences as well as part of the state purchasing office here in Minnesota. In addition to NASPO, we are active with Healthcare Supply Chain Association. I serve on the board of directors there, and we regularly help them plan conferences around pharmaceuticals and the healthcare supply chain. We are also involved with HIDA, the Health Industry Distributors Association. That is the focus of our healthcare products and services team. We are involved with NASHP, with National Association of State Healthcare Policy, as well as the National Governors Association. And I don't want to get into all of the other associate partners that we work with, but the American Jail Association, NCCHC, and ACHA, as part of some of our classes of trade, our pharmacists remain active with those. All right, member value. Okay, so what do we mean when we say MCAP Infuse is member driven? So why? Our members join and they make use of our contracts because they have easy access. That RFP contract and contract management piece is already taken care of. We assist members with contracted services that are needed. And we know that we are one option among many others. Sometimes for a particular need, we are the best option, and sometimes we're not. We do try to serve our members by and large for the most important needs and ways that we can serve the most of our members. We have large members and small members. And so size isn't so much a factor as the fact of how many folks can we assist with a particular product or service. But we do understand we're one option among many, and we try to be the best option when we can. We try to provide great prices negotiated based on that aggregated volume of all of our members purchasing. And once again, as I will probably beat this to death, our procurements are under the strict government procurement practices required by the state of Minnesota, and also with an eye to some of the other state members, county members, and folks that are involved with MCAP Infuse, so that we can write one contract instead of 8 contracts or 8,000 contracts, and achieve those efficiencies of scale in that way. Our mission is to ensure best value for pharmaceuticals and healthcare products and services to government facilities across the nation. What sets us apart as a national cooperative group purchasing organization for government facilities that provide healthcare services. We are operated by the state of Minnesota's Office of State Procurement. We are a government agency. We are self-funded. We can talk about that in a bit, but we do collect a small administrative fee under our contracts, and we use that self-funded those self-funded administrative fees that pay for our operating expenses, and all unused fees which were not necessary for funding our operation are returned to our members as part of an annual share back. And that is typically about 1/2 to 2/3 of the fees collected that are returned in the form of purchasing credits to our members. Membership is free and voluntary. There's no cost to participate with MCAP Infuse to any of our members. And just a quick membership profile. These are some of the classes of trade that are served by our state, county, city, and other local government members as part of the different classes of trade. We've got public health and student health, mental health, correctional facilities, convalescence and nursing facilities, schools, colleges, and universities, animal health, and public safety first responder classes of trade as part of our organization. This is I believe Jared just had this updated with our data team, and I'm sharing here a slide. This is our classes of trade by membership profile. As you can see, the biggest percentage of that is public health and correctional facilities, followed by schools and universities. Amongst those members that we talked about, 20-some thousand members in 50 states, we see this is representative of those 9,700 facilities purchasing in a given year. These include state agencies, counties, cities, and school districts that are responsible for providing healthcare. Public health facilities obviously provide nearly half of our membership, followed by correctional facilities and educational facilities. Mental health facilities also an important part of that. And vet services, you'll notice, it's a very small percentage, but it's a growing class of trade. And this year, animal health was only active for, I guess, the last year or so. We're seeing some sales in that area, and we expect to see some more in the future. This is a similar graph. It's a representing the multiple classes of trade, but what we really wanted to show is that these are top participating members in the pharmacy program between fiscal years 19 and 2022. And so that fiscal year 2022 would have ended last July. And these are the top sales that we saw then over those 4 fiscal years. Just some representative members in the pharmacy program where we saw a lot of sales. As you can see, Ohio Pharmacy Services, Tennessee Department of Corrections, Miami-Dade County Public Health Department, Wisconsin Department of Corrections, BHS Central Pharmacy. You'll also see a couple of other central pharmacies. Different states have different models with respect to their correctional programs, and so some things come in a little bit differently. Florida Department of Health, for one example, North Carolina Department of Public Safety, Apex Central Pharmacy, Department of Corrections and Services there. OU, is that Oklahoma U Pharmacist Care Center, and DSHS Pharmacy Division HIV program. Just a couple of examples. I wanted to show you the diversity both geographically among some different states and the different classes of trade, whether we're looking at corrections or public health or student health, that we see across our organization with those sales. Similar graph for our healthcare products and services for those same fiscal years 19 through 22. It's a little bit interesting because we have the pandemic right in the middle of this. And so I know that has skewed things a little bit. But again, I just wanted to show a good representation of some of our top participating members in terms of the type of organization or government entity that they are, as well as those different classes of trade that you see there. You'll see Snake River Correctional Institution, Florida Department of Veterans Affairs, Tennessee Health and Human Services, Arkansas Department of Health In-Home Services, just to name a few. You'll see California Healthcare Facilities, Nevada Emergency Management, State of Rhode Island Emergency Management. So healthcare products and services have some slightly different facilities than you would see in the pharmaceutical side of things, but also Indiana Department of Child Services. You'll see a lot of different things coming from our healthcare products and services because they are a different class of goods. We see everything on that side of things, from incontinence to condoms to we had breast pumps for a while, and I think that one's still in process right now. But we see a lot of different things. Different classes of trade are stronger in each side of our business there. So what are the benefits of participation with MCAP Infuse? Well, first of all, reduced costs for medical products and services. We have a free membership, MCAP Infuse membership application agreement. An agreement is available on our website if you are not already a member of that, and I have a feeling you folks already are. But if you're not familiar and you have a different facility or someone reaches out, obviously you can contact us through the website and complete a membership application through that link. That membership application is completed by the member that wants to join, and then we do have a state contact in each state that signs off on that membership and to certify that that facility is eligible to join, because occasionally we have some folks that aren't so sure that they fall into an eligible category. So we have that state contact sign off on that. Annual wholesaler shareback credit. I mentioned before, the admin fees that are not used for our operational expenses are returned to our members in form of a shareback credit that can be used for future purchases. The state of Minnesota procurement guidelines fit most states' requirements. We happen to be proudly one of the more stringent, probably have some of the more stringent procurement guidelines in the country. And I think that fits well with a number of our members. Additionally, we have a member-controlled formulary. Each year, around the time of our national member conference in the spring, we have members that participate in selection of those pharmaceutical contracts and products that are brought onto contract there. We have a designated senior healthcare consultant for each of 6 regions. I believe for Broward County, it would be Jasper Watkins, who serves our Southeast territory down there. We have member-driven leadership. And so what does that mean? We'll talk about it in just a moment, but we have an advisory board that is driven by members, and we have an 8-member advisory board panel as well as a chairman of that board. And they serve not only from different parts of the country in a diverse sort of geographic representation, but also from different classes of trades. We have nationwide peer networking opportunities. We have a monthly member call. We also have an opportunity for folks to attend our national member conference in the spring to network with other folks similarly situated at facilities around the country. And we have some other trade-based discussions based on those classes of trade, sometimes with our pharmacists, sometimes in other categories as the need arises. And we have experienced health staff specializing in healthcare and government procurement. For example, one of our pharmacists, Brandon, is a certified correctional health professional. He is just really he is the genius when it comes to our correctional needs, and he has built some really incredible expertise around that area. And all of our clinical pharmacists on staff are residency trained. Next, benefits. How do we keep things simple? Okay, I have 2 examples for you and how we have helped a couple of our members. One of those examples is a large city in Minnesota, city of St. Paul. And the need that was expressed was they needed, this is during the pandemic, obviously, a large quantity of N95 masks. They were looking for about 450,000, 500,000 masks. They wanted 3M branded masks, but those were not easily available in the market at the time, obviously because of the shortages we were seeing. Substitutes were accepted, and they were willing to accept those substitutes. And the trigger was a new buyer emailed the MCAP Infuse office and was not able to find the contracts they needed with the Office of State Procurement. So they were referred to their senior healthcare consultant, who contacted the member. The healthcare consultant confirmed that there was an active MCAP Infuse ID with the correct bill to and ship to, and they connected the buyer with a number of vendors, stressing the importance of using that MCAP Infuse ID number. And as a result, the member was working with one of our vendors, Medical Solutions, a certified small business and minority-owned business, and that was able to fill their need. There was no bid necessary. They didn't have to issue their own RFP or solicitation, and they were able to connect for this sort of urgent need in the middle of the pandemic. So that was just one success story. Another one, example number 2, Midwest state, I believe it was the state of Iowa, and they needed some vaccination supplies, safety needles, syringes, alcohol prep pads, Band-Aids, etc. And the state purchasing contact reached out to the senior healthcare consultant with a request. And the solution for this was that they collected a scope of work and list of items that were needed by this state, including a description, quantity, and ship to locations. And this was sent as a request for a quote to 5 of our contracted vendors. And they were given 7 days to return that request for a quote. Vendors responded with quotes under their MCAP Infuse contracts, direct to the buyer, and the buyer selected the best value for their specific state, and no bid then or solicitation was needed, because under the current contracts that were available, we were able to meet that need. So big takeaway, we do help to keep things simple when we know that there's a request or one of our members is looking for something. There are ways that we can step in and see, with the assistance of our senior healthcare consultants or folks on staff, we can look and see what's on contract and get some information pretty quickly, usually within a few days or a week, so that they can go ahead and make those purchases, particularly if they are something urgent. I mentioned this before. Ways that we are member driven. First of all, state contacts. There are 2 representatives from each state that are named officially a state contact. One representative is from pharmacy, one representative is from health, from procurement, from a procurement office usually. And additionally, we have some extra members that participate in particular classes of trade and that can be active with MCAP Infuse. These 2 state contacts, however, act as liaisons between MCAP Infuse and members within that state. They review membership applications and eligibility and help connect folks who are new to MCAP Infuse signing those membership applications. They evaluate pharmaceutical proposals at the MCAP Infuse National Member Conference each spring, and they assist with requests for proposals, strategies, and contract award process. So when we're doing those requests for proposals or solicitation, we reach out to members that are involved in those particular contracts, classes of trade, or types of products, and they serve on our evaluation committees for those solicitations. The other ways that we are member driven is our advisory board. I mentioned before, we've got 8 members, 4 pharmacy members and 4 procurement members, as well as an appointed board chair. They work with myself and our other managers, ensuring that our strategic direction is aligned with member needs. So we have a lot of discussions about what are we seeing that we need out there? What is missing? What aren't we doing? What are we doing well? What do we need to do more of? And those kinds of questions. They are typically folks that have been around and been to several of our conferences, participated in a lot of MCAP Infuse contracts and purchases, and they are the voice of the membership. They bring things to my attention or to our members and managers' attention and saying, here, these are things we need to focus on. These are things that are less important, and they really help us with that strategic vision and determining what should be the focus of our planning for years ahead. They also participate in planning the National Member Conference. They assist with nomination of other advisory board candidates and the recruitment of extra members for our national member conference. We have folks that are not necessarily state contacts, but are active or want to be active in MCAP Infuse that attend our national conference as well. And they also provide some feedback on our initiatives and our budget. So as we mentioned before, we are funded by vendor fees. We are self-funded. Those administrative fees are collected to support MCAP Infuse efforts in consolidating, managing, and growing our membership. And this is a standardized business model amongst other group purchasing organizations. It's a normal part of contracting with manufacturers and wholesalers. We assist in resolving member issues, and those vendor fees fund our operations. And so we are not, as though we were part of the state procurement office, our salaries and our overhead expenses are not paid by our state legislature, but rather from vendor fees that are collected as a small administrative fee. And those fees that are not used to fund operations are returned 100% to the MCAP Infuse member facilities as wholesaler credits that they can use towards future purchases. And I guess I want to brag that we return a higher percentage of administrative fees for our members versus other GPOs. This is my chance to brag about that. But the other thing I would like to brag about, and I need to give some credit to Betsy about this and to some of my mentors in state government and procurement, that we try to be the best stewards of government funds as we can. We know that this is public money, whether it is coming from our members and their purchases or whether it's coming from our vendors. So we want to return as much of that to our members for their expenses because we are serving the public. And I think that's really important. So shareback credit, this is just an example. Goodness, over the last 12 years or so, we crossed a pretty big threshold this past year. We returned over $16 million, about $16.5 million to our members, which, as you can see, from 2009, we have tripled that share back credit that's going back to members. And so that is a significant portion of some of the savings. In addition to the prices that you see on contract, this is money that comes back year over year based on purchases and that share back credit that is earned to members. So it is a factor in determining savings and best value that can be achieved under our contracts. All right, what kind of contract programs do we have? We offer a number of contracts for the greater good. I'll give you a few examples here. Pharmacy products, you'll see pharmaceuticals, influenza vaccine, routine vaccines, diabetic supplies, nutritionals, vials and containers, emergency preparedness, opioid reversal agents. We used to talk about Narcan, but there are a number of other products on the market right now. And so we have several of those on contract. We don't want to single out just one. Automated dispensing contracts. Pharmacy services include wholesaler distribution, prescription filling, reverse distribution, repackaging, clinical pharmacy services, DSCSA compliance services, which I think is going to be a focus of the coming years, as well as institutional pharmacy services. I would note that institutional pharmacy services include the aspect that some vendors have clinical pharmacists on staffing, checking for interactions, providing therapeutic substitutions. Filling is a more basic function as opposed to the institutional pharmacy services. One of the other things that is a focus of ours and part of our strategic plan is to implement some invoice auditing, which we will begin doing over the next year. Those plans are coming as we wrap up some other big projects that we have right now. From the healthcare products and services side, I would note that our biggest contracts are probably our medical supply contracts. We also have dental supplies, drug and alcohol testing and products, condoms and related products, as well as incontinence products. On the services side of that, we have services for medical equipment, for dental equipment, and then third-party administration of drug testing for both transportation and non-transportation entities. Pharmaceutical wholesalers. So our pharmaceutical wholesaler program permits each state to choose one of 3 wholesalers. Currently, our 3 wholesalers are Cardinal Health, Morrison Dixon, or AmeriSourceBergen. They receive a cost of goods discounting based on both brand and generic, based on state volume. They receive favorable delivery and return policies with advanced reporting, as well as this being a one-stop shop for pharmaceuticals, vaccines, and over-the-counter medications. There's no generic purchasing compliance requirement, and there is not a formulary imposed on any of our members. In terms of any formulary, we do have our state contact pharmaceutical folks recommending products that we want to have on contract, excuse me, but there is not a set formulary that folks must purchase from. So cost savings in pharmacy. We have done market basket comparisons in the past, revealing that MCAP Infuse contract pricing provides significant savings for classes of trade, including University Student Health, Department of Corrections, county jails, Department of Health, and state hospitals. This price validation and data integrity ensured through detailed item matching processes and aligning purchase dates and payment terms. I remember when we were preparing this and updating this, I was out of the office last week in your fair state of Florida. I must say it was 90 degrees warmer yesterday in my world. But when we were going over this and putting this slide together, we had these incredible numbers showing anywhere from like 7% to like a 40% savings in these specific basket comparisons of particular goods. And we didn't want to include any specific numbers there because we thought those were a little bit outdated when we'd run some market basket comparisons. We hadn't done that in many months. And so it really depends on exactly the specific goods, pharmaceuticals, or healthcare products that we are looking at to do comparisons for. But throughout the pandemic, I just want to emphasize that we worked hard with our members and partners to secure cost-effective, in-demand products. In the crux of that, we know a lot of items were on allocation and hard to find, and we had folks manning those phones around the clock, calling vendors, seeing what we could get a hold of for our members. And members that were already purchasing had somewhat of an advantage because of those allocations, but we worked really hard to find product for new members that didn't have the advantage of some of those allocations. I would also mention we are an industry leader in opioid reversal therapies with industry-leading pricing, an ever-growing portfolio, and thousands of examples of members that are using our harm reduction products across the nation, whether that is in educational facilities and public health facilities, or even we would see in emergency preparedness, we would see county sheriff associations and a wide range of members participating in those opioid reversal product purchases.
Hey, Wendy, can I hop in with a little additional info on the opioids?
Please do, Jared. This is Jared.
Okay.
I mentioned him earlier, but welcome. Jump in with what you added.
So when we were working on the presentation here, where it says thousands of harm reduction members across the nation, I initially had it as hundreds. And I was reminded that in the last year that there have been multiple states that have added hundreds of SHIP-2s on their own. So when you have 50 states doing that, those numbers add up quickly. For instance, the state of Maryland Department of Health has a very large harm reduction program that we've brought on board recently, along with a program called Save Lives Oregon, where I believe there is at least 150 SHIP-2s that have been added in the last 6 to 9 months. Hawaii has also brought on a large program as well. So that is and continues to be a huge source of growth for and focus for our members.
That's awesome, and it's something I'm proud of. And I think I try not to be too proud because I know that things change, and tomorrow I might be less proud. But that is something we are very proud of here at MCAP Infuse, those harm reduction efforts. Thanks, Jared, and jump in again if I'm missing anything. I think I'm supposed to be winding up here in the next few minutes, so I'm going to try to jump through these last slides and give you all a chance to ask us some questions. I see a couple notifications popping up, and I don't want to mess things up. Okay, I don't want to mess anything up while I'm running these slides. So how do we ensure superior pricing? Just want to mention that we have our pharmaceutical contracting period. We contract for generics every year and brand name pharmaceuticals every 4 years. And then our wholesaler distribution contracts are out for solicitation every 4 to 5 years. And then maybe this might be unique to the pharmaceutical program. I know those of you that work in procurement, and I have a background in procurement as well, we have aggressive price negotiations throughout the contract term. So prices change on a very regular basis, and those negotiations happen constantly throughout the life of those pharmaceutical contracts. The other thing we want to mention is we've said before, we are operated by the state of Minnesota, the Office of State Procurement, and we strictly adhere to those guidelines as required in Minnesota, and we want to include as many other state requirements as possible. And we issue those in RFP form to ensure an open and fair competitive process. So something else that folks, and Jared, you might want to be jumping in on this one too, because I think this is something that might have been refined while I was out of the office last week. But MMCAP Infuse members can use the MMCAP Infuse wholesaler agreements to add spend to their overall state volume, which determines those cost of good discounts. And so this allows a member to get cost of good discounts on top of a 340B price and provide additional savings to other members in their states and save taxpayer dollars as part of that cost of good discount. That's a really important thing to note. Members can have an account for purchases that are not 340B eligible, including vaccines, giving them access to discounted contract pricing separate from that 340B purchasing that needs to be kept independent and distinct. We've coordinated with a large number of correctional facilities to share information on how to become 340B element. There were some highlights that were shared to me, and so I do understand that 340B does not provide vaccines. We just want to be clear about that, but through a separate account, vaccines could be purchased to achieve some of those discounts on contract. And we wanted to make sure that folks don't mistakenly believe that what they're buying from a Paxos in terms of those vaccines would be 340B, that it would be another GPO that would have that, and that we often beat those prices in that area. There are some notes related to 340B. We want to highlight that the program allows members to use the wholesaler agreement, and adding that spend to overall volume really helps the state achieve a higher cost of goods discount. Let's see. The other thing we'd want to note under 340B is that coordination with correctional facilities, and they use a lot of this under STD or HIV/AIDS programs to buy expensive drugs, Hep C or HIV meds, and some other antibiotics, allowing some of those correctional facilities to achieve some really big discounts. And working with one of our pharmacists, particularly Brandon, I think, who's pretty knowledgeable on the correction side, could give you some more details about that if you've got questions there. We do want to, went through that already. I was talking about it. All right. Influenza vaccine program. I do want to just kind of mention a few things about that. So if folks are participating in our vaccine programs, we do need to encourage them to always pre-book early. Suppliers ship according to when orders are placed. So if you book early, you will get your product earlier. Pre-booking discounts are often available, and those anticipated dose quantities should be booked as soon as possible. Some of the other considerations that have been explained to me, because I am not a vaccine expert, but recurring pre-book programs with contracted suppliers, and we encourage folks to diversify and order with at least 2 different products, because sometimes there are issues with supply, as we have seen not just in the pandemic, but also with routine vaccines. And we encourage folks to review suppliers' pre-booking spreadsheets from the MMCAP website to ensure that the facility order is active and where it needs to be. Difficult seasons. I know there are a lot of tax considerations that folks should be paying attention to if you are in charge of purchasing vaccines. And if there are shortages, which happen occasionally, we encourage members to have a strategy to prioritize high-risk patients. And so it's one of the things that we are most often asked about when it comes to vaccines. I'm not specifically relating this to pandemic, but rather to routine vaccines. I'm going to hop along just to mention drug shortages. They occur. Sometimes they're predictable because things are on a list and we can see from our suppliers that things are going to happen. Other shortages evolve. And so MMCAP Infuse member support during those times of shortage include providing information on product availability, on expected shipping dates, and which suppliers actually have product that folks are looking for. Also involves working with members to determine whether they can switch products, switch the presentation or the format, vials to syringes, or purchase from a non-contracted source, for example, a pharmaceutical wholesaler. And want to emphasize that MMCAP Infuse is a proud member of the End Drug Shortages Alliance, which is consists of a group of manufacturers, distributors, and group purchasing organizations that are working together to find solutions so that we have fewer of those drug shortages happening. And we just want to, I'd also want to emphasize that when folks share information related to supply chain availability, it can actually help fix some of those shortages before they happen. I'm going to jump to the end here. We create and share valuable savings through competitively bid and aggressively negotiated contracts adhering to the state of Minnesota procurement regulations. We leverage member volume to forge deep cost savings for pharmaceuticals and healthcare products and services for members across the nation. I'm so proud to be a part of this organization, and I am going to just say thank you. That is our main switchboard line and our main email line and our website. You can see it there. And if you need to jot that down, I'll let you do that. I'm going to turn my camera on. I'll invite Jared to maybe do the same if he feels comfortable. I'm not going to make him, but I'm going to turn off the slide sharing here and just say, do you have questions for us? Because we are happy to answer any questions. And right now, when it's like 4 degrees outside, we wish we were down there answering them in person.
Thank you so much, Wendy. I see that Jared has also been answering some of the questions in the chat, and I'm going to repeat some of those as well, just so that those of you who haven't been monitoring the chat, you can kind of get that verbal response from our presenters. So the first question I have here is, should membership be with each individual using agency? For example, Broward Addiction Recovery Center, Animal Care, Broward Sheriff's Office, or anyone else? Or should it be the county overall?
Yep, if there are, like I said in the chat, if there are separate bill to offices, the best method for that is to have individual memberships. Like with these, like we mentioned with the Narcan facilities where there'll be a master bill to and then 75, 125 ship tos. We're not going to do 125 applications for those individual ship tos. So it'll go to the master bill to, and then those ship tos will be under it. So as long as they're separate bill tos, that's the best method for that.
Okay, and the next question is, do you find any differences with local government needs and/or is there input into the advisory board?
I think we both probably have something to say about this. I would say definitely. And I would say it's not just state versus county versus local, but it's also size, because big states are different than little states. Big counties are different than little counties. And we have a number of both. And I think it's part of my duty is to represent both large and small government entities well. And I'm trying to think. I'm going through my head right now. We've actually had a couple folks on the advisory board who have who've come from counties, and we've had folks on the advisory board during their tenure switch counties, but still remain part of the advisory board because the county that they switched employment to was active with MMCAP Infuse. And I don't want to drop names right now or embarrass anybody, but yes, we've had folks coming from the county level on the advisory board.
Yep, and in my time with MMCAP Infuse, which goes back to 2013, we've had city members as well. They're less frequent that we see them show up as wanting to run, but we did have one, I think it was basically for my first 4 years on the job, a member from the city level. But, like Wendy said, there are different things. There's a lot of similarities between the needs of the states and between the counties and local facilities and the warming houses where they order first aid kits and things like that for the winter months. But the big thing is the difference in size. That's the main difference. And we try to make sure that our board members are, that our members know that regardless of where they come from, as long as they meet the other eligibility criteria, that they are eligible to run for the board, and make our board members available to them so that their input is heard. And like I said, we also get a lot of that feedback from the smaller members, either directly or through our senior healthcare consultants. And we make sure that the board hears that as well, because we like to really stress that they are the voice of our members, whether it's the state of California or the city of Odessa, Minnesota, population 225. We want to make sure that all those needs are being heard.
Okay. Do you find medical examiners having a need for your services or supplies?
And historically, that hasn't been a huge need for our members, but I am one of the 2 people within MCAP Infuse that sign our membership agreements as they come through. And in the last, I would say the last 2 to 3 months, I have seen a few of those come through. So I think it is a growing area of interest and need for our members. And as those interests and needs grow, that tends to be when we're able to bring additional products and contracts into the portfolio.
Okay. Do you offer special pricing for proprietary drugs or formulary?
So we do not have a formulary that is enforced on members. When we talk about formulary, there are 2 kinds of ways to look at it. One is, here's the formulary and you get a better deal on the formulary on all the drugs included within the formulary. And so we are not of that model. So this is an open purchase. There's no required formulary and there's no discount for adhering to a specific formulary. I can also talk about the MCAP Infuse formulary, and that's kind of a looser term. And that is really when we have our annual generic solicitation, and then every 4 years when we're bringing the name brand drugs into the picture, and our state contacts work diligently with our pharmacy team to bring the products on contract that they need in the doses, quantities, and formats that folks are really wanting on contract. There's always the possibility of purchasing off contract from the pharmaceutical wholesaler. So those are always available if they are not specifically named in our contracts. But no, I guess I would say it's really based on that cost of goods discount. There's not a specific formulary that we're tied to. I think that's one of the things that probably distinguishes us from some similar but different organizations, in that's we're not a PBM, we're not sort of the private sector GPO. So
yeah, and when I've asked that question too of our pharmacy contracting manager, she always likes to remind me that of that flexibility, and that we're more flexible than most other GPOs when it comes to those commitments and purchasing requirements. And we do intentionally leave formulary decisions up to the members to make sure that their needs are being managed appropriately.
Okay, and the last question I have here is there a requisitioning or ordering portal to be used, or is there a punch-out catalog that can be integrated into an e-procurement system? For example, Ivalua, Bonfire, etc. And do you accept P cards for payments?
I can't. Okay, so go ahead, Jared.
Oh, I was going to say, so for on the MCAP Infuse side, we don't have an ordering portal. Like on the pharmaceutical side, our wholesalers do. So Morrison-Dixon, Cardinal Health, AmerisourceBergen will all have an ordering portal that you can place those orders through. But the actual ordering doesn't go through us, so we don't have any sort of portal like that. Our portal includes our contracts and things like that, but in terms of the ordering, that's all done through the pharmaceutical wholesalers and then those medical supply distributors as well. And then it really kind of depends from there. There are certain states where they have a punch out catalog. Virginia comes to mind for that one as a pretty prominent one. But then it really kind of depends on the state and what they require.
Okay, well, those are all the questions that I am seeing here in the chat. Thank you to Wendy and Jared. I'm going to go ahead and toss back over to Bob in the event he has anything else you would like to say before we close out.
Not really. You answered all the questions I had, and I appreciate your time and you know, the information that you've provided to our group here. I think we have a fairly good representation of county users and purchasing people here. It's very helpful, very informative, and in the event that you ever want to come down and have a sort of a regional show and tell, you're welcome to come to Broward County. We're just north of Miami-Dade County and just south of Palm Beach County. We've got about 6 million people in the general regional area here. So between the sheriff's offices, the public schools, higher education, university colleges, and of course the counties, cities, we've got about 15 or 16 cities here incorporated in this county, and there are plenty more to the north and south. So it's a small, compact region with a lot of punch. So y'all are always welcome to come down here and visit.
Well, thank you, Bob. That is so sweet of you. If we are able to present and do some traveling in the future, I would be happy to be there. You're pretty close to one of my friends from law school, so that would be an incentive for me to come and talk to you all. But anyway, it's been a pleasure visiting with you this afternoon. If y'all have any if you have any questions, please reach out to Jared or myself or to the main line and or to Jasper, and we can hook you up with the right folks, answer any questions that you have.
Thanks so much. And Betsy will tell you how much I love lawyers. So
I think Betsy and I are like the cool ones. Maybe I don't know that, but I'll tell you all a story. I was teaching a night class a number of years ago, and they told me that I didn't seem like a lawyer, and I felt like it was the best compliment anybody could pay me. So
you're a commercial attorney. All right. Well, good to see you, Betsy, and thanks to you and your team. I guess if there's any final questions from the Broward staff, did we miss anything? Any questions?
I'm not
All right.
seeing any. Looks like we're good. Thank you,
I want to
guys.
thank you, Alexa, for organizing this.
You're
yes,
welcome.
All right. You guys enjoy the weather up there.
all right. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Good to see you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.